Shalom and welcome back to Israel Comelin. January 27th is remembered as International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And that's why we came here to the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem to tell the story of Souza Dantas, the Brazilian hero who saved hundreds of lives risking his own, but who was forgotten by his own people. Stay with us until the end of the video to see the most moving and most important place in this museum. So, if you are ready, let's get started. The Holocaust was one of the most terrible periods in human history. During World War II, the Nazis persecuted and exterminated Jews, but also other minorities, such as Roma, people with disabilities, Jehovah's Witnesses, and others. And they caused the death of 6 million Jews, who died of hunger, cold, tortured in concentration and extermination camps, in forced labor, and in gas chambers. Jews were not seen as human beings. But even in humanity's darkest moments, when Jews were being taken on those trains to their extermination, there were still people who fought for what is right. And they did everything they could to save human lives. And here, in Jerusalem, they received the recognition they deserve. We are in the garden of the righteous among the nations. And you can see at the foot of each tree that there is a name and a country of origin. They are non-Jews who risked their own lives to save Jews during the Holocaust. They did this without gaining anything in return. And there are more than 27,000 righteous people, and that's why the trees grow here and form a great forest. And among these righteous people, we have Brazilians and Portuguese. Let's get to know them now. And here, among all these names, we find 4 Portuguese people: Joaquim Carreira, Aristides de Souza Mendes, José Brito Mendes, Sampaio Garrido Carlos, and 2 Brazilians: Luiz Martins de Souza Dantas and Aracide Carvalho Guimarães Rosa. And Luiz Martins de Souza Dantas has one of the most impressive stories from this place. Now, let's see how he risked his own life and career to save Jews during the Holocaust. Souza Dantas was born on February 17, 1876 in Rio de Janeiro, and at an early age he joined the Brazilian Diplomatic Corps. And in 1922, he was sent as Brazil's ambassador to France. It was a very prestigious position, and he had a great life in Paris. But he started to get worried in 1933, when Hitler comes to power in Germany and starts passing racial laws, and the persecutions begin. And he starts to see the suffering of these Jews and these minorities. But what he couldn't imagine is that a few years later, in 1940, the Nazis would invade France and take Paris. France would be divided, the north would be controlled by the Nazis, the south would be the free zone, and the new capital would be Vichy. Imagine learning a new language just by binge watching your favorite series. As someone working with tourists every day in Israel, learning Hebrew was important to me. But the apps I tried felt boring or ineffective. It felt like I was learning textbook Hebrew, not the Hebrew real Israelis actually speak. Then I discovered Lingopie, the Netflix of language learning. After work, I usually watch TV, so being able to learn a new language while doing something I already enjoy feels incredibly easy and natural. So now I just watch Israeli TV series and learn at the same time. I can tap on any word I don't know and instantly get a translation with context. Plus, it's got tools built in like flashcards, so you can practice later to better learn the words, not just by reading them the first time, but also by taking notes and even fun quizzes. With Lingopie's double subtitle feature, I've started to pick up more words like manishma. Now I can put sentences together, tell a joke in Hebrew, and make Israelis look at me in surprise and ask, "Wait, are you Israeli?" Lingopie offers 13 plus languages like Spanish, French, Italian, Chinese, and more. If you also want to learn a language in a way that feels real and not boring, try Lingopie today. And since you are coming through my channel, you can get 55% off yearly plan and 7 days free trial. Just scan the QR code or click the link below to start learning today. And let me know in the comments how it's going for you. Israel teaches me every day that history lives through language, and now I can finally speak it. And then Souza Dantas and the entire embassy had to flee from Paris to Vichy. And along the way, he would make the decision that would change his life. He decides to fight for human life and for what is right. Along the way, Souza Dantas meets dozens of people who desperately needed visas. Because at that time, Jews could only escape and save themselves from Nazi Europe if they had an entry visa to another country. And at that time, most countries in the world had closed their borders to Jewish immigration. The visa was literally a matter of life or death for those people. So why doesn't Souza Dantas simply give visas to all those people to go to Brazil? Because at that time, President Getúlio Vargas forbids Jewish immigration to Brazil. As early as 1937, Jews are forbidden from entering Brazil. Secret documents from that time show us this. A visa shall be denied to anyone known through their own declaration or any other reliable source of information who is of Semitic ethnic origin. But Souza Dantas decides to ignore the president's orders and continue issuing visas. But this was a more difficult task than it seems, because many didn't even have a passport. Many arrived as refugees and had lost everything, including all their documents. And others arrived with a passport marked with a red J. That was the mark the Nazis put on all Jewish passports. And Dantas did this for free. He didn't even charge the consular fees. But after a while, Getúlio Vargas hears about what Souza Dantas was doing and orders him to be stopped. Souza Dantas is forbidden from issuing any visas. But do you think Souza Dantas would stop? Of course not. He was determined to save the lives of Jews and other people persecuted by Nazism. And that's why he kept issuing visas. But he would put an issue date from before Getúlio Vargas's ban. And he sends letters to Oswaldo Aranha and the Brazilian government trying to change their position. I remember that since there was no consul, I was immediately forced to take on consular duties to literally save human lives. In the face of the greatest catastrophe humanity has ever suffered, with the noble heart of all Brazilians, I did what even the coldest person would have done. When moved by the most basic feelings of Christian compassion, he was doing it out of the Christian compassion he had in his heart. And even though the government was against it, he knew the generous soul of the Brazilian people. Souza Dantas was fighting against the Brazilian government. But the situation will become even more dangerous on November 10, 1942, when the Nazis invade the rest of France and also Vichy. At that time, Brazil had already declared war and broken diplomatic relations with Nazi Germany. And because of that, Souza Dantas was now a Brazilian diplomat in enemy territory. And even more of an enemy for trying to save Jews. And because of that, the first thing he orders is to burn all the embassy's documents, to try to hide what he was doing. But also so the Nazis wouldn't find out who had received a visa. So they wouldn't try to take those people back. And on November 27th, the Gestapo, which was the Nazi secret police, invaded the Brazilian embassy in Vichy. And the Nazis, when they saw that the embassy had burned the documents, knew that Souza Dantas had done something illegal in the eyes of the Nazis. And because of that, they arrested Souza Dantas and the entire diplomatic staff and sent them to Bad Godesberg in Germany. And they would be prisoners of war for 14 months. Until finally, Brazil and Germany arranged a prisoner exchange mediated by Portugal. And Souza Dantas returns to Brazil. And the Brazilian press and the Brazilian people, upon hearing that Souza Dantas was returning, planned a parade for him in an open-top car. The hero's welcome he deserved. But Getulio Vargas, upon hearing this, ordered the entire press not to say anything about the matter and cancelled all the festivities. And he will literally erase Souza Dantas from the pages of Brazilian history. He manages in 1945 to lead the Brazilian delegation at the UN. But that will be his last public role. And a few years later, on April 14, 1954, Souza Dantas will die alone. Poor and forgotten in a room in a modest hotel in Paris. His body will later be brought to Rio de Janeiro and buried at the Carro Cemetery. He didn't have any children. And because of his humility, he didn't leave his heroic story written down. And he falls completely into oblivion. How is it possible that we don't know the story of this hero? Souza Dantas saved more than 800 lives. Of these, 425 were Jews. And despite not having any descendants, these 800 people are his legacy. He brought light to the world in a time of darkness. At the same time that the Brazilian government denies visas to more than 18,000 Jews. Many of them would later suffer in the Holocaust. Since his death, Souza Dantas has been forgotten. That changed in 2002 when historian Fabio Koifman rediscovered this hero. And then the State of Israel also discovers the story of our Brazilian hero. And then a special commission led by a judge from the Supreme Court of Israel gives an honorary title to Souza Dantas, the title of Righteous Among the Nations. And his memory was immortalized here at the Holocaust Museum in 2003. And now we're going to enter the most striking memorial in the Holocaust Museum, the Children's Memorial. Of the 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust, 1.5 million were children. And on this International Holocaust Remembrance Day, I want us to remember them especially. In Judaism, we have a phrase that says, whoever saves a life is as if they have saved the entire world. Souza Dantas saved 800 worlds. The memorial we are entering now, it has a candle and a set of mirrors. And we can see how much light can be created from a single candle. And so we can imagine how much light could have been brought into the world if each of those children had survived. And here in the background we can hear their names and their ages when they were murdered.
Yehuda Levin, 1 year old. Fima Zlotnikov, 6 years old.
And now I ask you to like this video and share it, to keep the memories of Souza Dantas alive, of the other righteous among the nations, and of the 6 million victims of the Holocaust for future generations. Thank you very much and see you next time.